Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order, July 15th, 2021. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Adequate notice of this meeting was advertised in the Asbury Park Press and the Beacon on January 14th, 2021, and by posting a notice in the Forked River Post Office and the Lenoka Harbor Post Office, and by filing a copy of the notice with the Lacey Township Clerk, as required by the Open Public Meeting Act. Mr. DeGeorge, can we have a roll call, please?
Mrs. Claus.
Here.
Mr. Scanlon.
Here.
Mr. Peters.
Present.
Mrs. DeSensa. Mrs. Downing. Mr. Polino.
Present.
Mrs. McAvoy.
I am here, thank you. At this time, we will have public comment. An audience member wishing to make a comment shall raise his or her hand and when called upon, state their name, address, affiliation, and intention to make a statement. Comments shall be limited to agenda items only. Comments shall be addressed to the board president. Comments shall be made on one issue at a time and limited to 5 minutes. No audience member will be recognized twice until all who wish to make a comment have been recognized. At this time, seeing no public comment, we will go on to board and superintendent comments.
Mrs. McAvoy, before we
Oh.
do that, just, yeah, we did receive nothing via the Google platform for
Agenda items. Thank you. So we will go on. Dr. Clark, do you have any comments pertaining to agenda?
At this time, no.
Thank you. Board comments. Mrs. Claus?
I do. I have a few, actually.
Okay.
Okay, so just so there's no surprises, I am going to vote no for that one policy, the grading system 2624. Very good debate, by the way. That was good. But I just don't feel that we are helping our students and the district in the long run just by giving them the safety net of 60. So if that was changed, yeah, I would definitely feel different about the policy. But I just feel in the end, it's kind of doing them a disservice and our school a disservice just to pass them along, even though we do have students that, you know, need extra help. But so that's pretty much it. I just wanted to let you know that's why I'm voting no. And let's see. Yeah, I wanted to just talk a little bit about the email or whatever that I sent to Ed, and I just wanted to be clear that, you know, as our schools age, the town is aging, our schools age, if we can just take a look, you know, at just overall revamping some things that are just looking old. Things are being kept, but some things just need to be replaced. So that's why I brought it to the facilities, the finance and operation committee, just to go over, you know, like the chipped paint on the signs, maybe ripping out, not just trimming some hedges, and whatever else we can do to make the school just look a little more updated in general for really all the schools. So that was it. And then lastly, I'd like to have like a discussion, it doesn't have to be now, but I know we talked about just increasing just board communication in general, and you know, I'm hoping people can just come up with ideas. I think we would be a better board if we just spent more time together as a group, which I know would have to be open. So, you know, I'm open to anything. If anyone else has ideas, I would love to do one meeting a month, a week before we do our committee meetings, just so we can discuss just what's coming up on the agendas, you know, just to have some conversation. I don't know if anybody else feels the same, but that's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Claus.
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Peters?
Thank you. I'd like to reflect a little bit about Mrs. Claus' comments regarding the grading policy. We did discuss some policy that we were just going to do this for this year. The save the student 60 grade, then we'll get to the first couple marking periods. And we're going to review this at the end of this year, actually at the end of the first semester, to see how many students actually use that platform in that grade. And Mr. Litsky said he was gonna report back to us mid-year once we find out on that. Also, my biggest fear removing that was the COVID crisis that we went through, the kids not in-person training. So as policy chair, I was actually for that. Just for this year, I agree with you 100%, give them what they earn. But the aspect of with the COVID and whatnot, the kids are gonna come back to school. Some kids weren't in school at all. I'd like to wait 1 year and revisit that, absolutely 100% on that. Also, agenda items. Mr. DeGeorge, on the disposal of assets, number 10, page 6, up top, wooden chairs. There's 28 of them going. Years ago, I was employed at the district, and they removed all the oak shelving out of the library and sold them for approximately $25 to $30 a piece, I believe. They were approximately $400 to $500 worth of oak, each of them. I'd like to take these chairs and donate them to the wood shop rather than get rid of them if they haven't disposed of already. The kids can make cutting boards out of it, disassemble them, whatever it might be, use them for projects, especially if they're oak. I don't know if they're oak or pine, but I'd like to give that possibly to the wood shop rather than just dispose of the wooden chairs in there.
Sure, yeah, they haven't been given anywhere yet.
Could we table that till next month to not accept it at this point, Mr. DeGeorge? And look into that
Sure,
suggestion?
you can.
Because I don't think we should vote to dispose them. Could we look into it and then next month you report back to us if there's a way that we could donate them to someone?
Sure.
The wood shop in particular, we have,
When
it's
yeah,
free lumber.
When it comes to, when I say dispose, when the law says dispose, it doesn't necessarily say throw out.
Mhm.
Repurpose is another way to say that, so in my opinion, I mean, we have an attorney, in my opinion, if we vote to move them out of our inventory of chairs as instructional supplies, then we are free to do whatever we want to do with them, including chopping them up and donating them to the wood shop. Am I right? Yeah, you're just removing it, right? It's not throwing it away.
Should we add anything in that, and we would repurpose if possible?
Do you think so?
We don't
Yeah, I
need
don't think so
to.
either.
Okay, so you will do your best
Yeah,
to
absolutely. Sure.
repurpose?
I will
So,
let you know.
the reason I want to highlight on that a little bit more, and I'm not trying to drag it out, but also as an employee years ago, we had probably 300 metal chairs. And out of the 300 metal chairs, they brought in a dumpster for a corporation that we paid for as a district, paid for the dumpster. I took one of the chairs out of the dumpsters, it took one of my students 4 minutes to disassemble it and take off the hard plastic seat, and it was all metal. And I watched the dumpster leave one day, and the guy was back in 15 minutes. I'm like, there's no way he went to the dump and came back that quick in Manchester. And being in construction, I know probably what he did. He took the metal, went to the recycling yard, got money on it, came back and charged us for the dumpster. It's just little, simple steps like that to save the taxpayers' money is what I'm trying to do.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Peters?
That's it, thank you.
That's it, okay,
Oh,
thank you. Thank you. Mr. Scanlon?
I'd like to take the opportunity to add my opinion to the safety net proposal with, that policy is coming up tonight. When I first heard the proposal that, you know, a student who fails by a low enough grade would never be able to recoup, I really didn't connect the dots correctly, if I can put it that way. And I thought right away, well, you know, I came up with different scenarios for if a student got a 45 even, or a 50, that in the next 3 marking periods, they should be able to bring it up with a little bit if there was enough guidance and encouragement from the teacher involved. And then it was after that that the realization came, they only have 1 more marking period because of our system. And because our system is really designed to be a model of college, and we're talking about students who probably aren't going to college, they're students who are at risk and may not be the higher performing students, obviously, if they're getting those scores. I think it's incumbent on us to do what we can to give them the opportunity to get back in step with their grades. And if we turn around and take a student at the first marking period and give them a grade that basically disqualifies them from passing, there's no way you're going to encourage that student to participate. So I think that we really do need to pass something. And, yeah, we can do it this year to see how it works out, but I would encourage that if we're going to continue with the marking, with the system we have now, where there's only 2 marking periods, that we do at least one of 2 things. And one is give them an opportunity to somehow improve that grade. And second is consider going to an A, B, C, D, and F system, because then a failing grade can be brought up with a C in the second marking period. And I don't think we're really lowering our standards, but what we're doing is we're encouraging students that you still have time. You can still work this out. I know when I taught, I've always had, right down to the very end, a way for a student to make up, to regain their position, to be able to pass the course. And I think it's important that we do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Clark, could we possibly put it on the curriculum agenda in the next 3 or 4 months, 2 months, to explore the pros and cons of what Mr. Scanlon is suggesting?
We already did implement that. That's on the agenda for tonight.
What he's suggesting about the A-B switching, he's suggesting have 4 marking periods instead of 2.
Oh, gosh.
And he's
Okay.
suggesting to go to A, B, C, D, F
Okay.
instead of. Okay.
If we're going to continue
Right.
We
this
did
way.
do also in that grading policy tonight, we are changing our grading policy numbers to match other schools and college numbers. Like, for instance, you needed a 92 or better for an A, now it's a 90. We're matching other school districts, other colleges, and other implements.
Right, okay.
That's part of that.
Thank
That
you.
we're voting on tonight.
Thank you.
I think November, Donna, we were gonna get a report from Will.
Right, right. This
Right.
is
We're talking about 2
total,
different things.
two
Okay.
different things. Will's gonna give us a report in November, but this is to put on curriculum to discuss the pros and cons of totally separate, what Mr. Scanlon's suggesting,
Yeah.
to go to 4 marking periods instead of 2.
And
So,
I think that would be helpful for that,
So-
because I would have voted yes if we could just say the first marking period, but because it goes until mid-November, to me, that's half a year. So if someone's not performing for a half a year, I think that's really my issue, is we're kinda, it's just a long period of time for someone to not be passing, for us to say, okay, you're gonna get a 60, when maybe it should just be a month.
Right.
Yeah.
However, I do think we're talking about 2 completely different
Okay.
things. So I understand what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Yes.
But what Mr. Scanlon's talking about is, and I'm gonna put it in non-layman's terms, right now, we're in a 4x4,
Mhm.
which means that we mimic college, whereas we have semester 1 with courses,
Right.
and then semester 2 with the totally separate courses. Prior to COVID, correct me if I'm wrong, prior to COVID, we were in an AB, which meant that the course ran all year. And
Right.
Correct.
And Mr. Scanlon is suggesting that we revisit returning to that instead of the 4x4 that we're in now. Am I correct, Mr. Scanlon?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay.
absolutely.
All
Yeah,
right.
so that, 2 different topics,
Okay.
and yes, we will.
you will, okay, so you and Mr. Zelinski will report
Yes.
too.
Yes.
Okay, that's wonderful. Mr. Polino,
Mrs. Scanlon, you have anything else?
he
No,
said, he
No?
said he was good.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't
That's
want to
okay.
jump. The only thing I have is with this safety net thing, and I know you're not a fan of it right now, but, you know, when I first heard about it, I was kind of skeptical myself, and then I was presented, I said, you know what? Not so much the COVID children, but I thought about future. And, you know, some kids just don't perform because they're not school kids. And I get it. But then we have the kids that are performers. And what I've learned in my 34-plus years as an officer, good people have bad days. And you have a student where there's some type of tragedy in a family, something happens, and there's 1 or 2 months where this student completely implodes, and there's a whole family strife going on, and that is bad. And now, in giving them a 20 or 0, whatever it might be, they're never gonna catch up. So now you have a performing student that's can't dig themselves out. So after thinking about this, I feel that the safety net really is a good thing. So that's just my 2 cents on it. Other than that, I have no other comments.
All right, thank
Frank,
you.
We also talked about in policy, lowering the number from 60 to 50 possibly, just to give a little bit more of accountability, but we just didn't have time with the months. If we postponed it another month, then it wouldn't be passed for September. Something to think about.
And so that's the conversation, that's the other conversation.
Right.
That we'll revisit that in November
Right.
to see.
How many kids are utilizing, right?
Correct, right, and so that's gonna be based on data that we'll use throughout the school year, so that when we're here this time next
Right.
year, we'll have some more information.
Great. Okay, and at this time, I don't have any comments for agenda session. Mr. DeGeorge, private session, please.
Be resolved that a private session be convened for the purpose of discussing confidential student matters, specifically HIB, confidential personnel matters, confidential legal matters, including but not limited to the current caseload, and confidential contractual matters, collective bargaining. The subject matter of these discussions will be disclosed to the public when the reason for confidentiality subsides. The length of the private session is estimated to be 40 minutes, after which the board shall reconvene and proceed with business. Action may be taken. Motion, please.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Welcome to private session. We were in town hall in